and welcome to Smaulgld's Indian Gold Import Update for the month of November 2016. Indian gold imports soar on the eve of demonetization. Today we're going to go through the October Indian gold import numbers compared to last month, compared to year over year, and do a complete overview of gold imports into India during 2016 compared to prior years. We're also going to look at the impact of Prime Minister Modi's demonetization plan and how that's going and how that impacts gold demand in India and gold imports going forward. So let's first look at gold imports in India in the month of October. October 2016 Indian gold imports rose 105% from September. Gold imports rose in advance of the gold giving season that traditionally happens in the fall in India due to Diwali and the Indian wedding season. But these numbers in October were ahead of the shock rupee demonetization announcement that occurred in early November. Now, gold imports have been under pressure all year from increased duties, taxes, it was a jewelry strike, and from government intervention. Now, the rupee demonetization made gold very attractive, as we'll see. We'll look at some numbers of how much gold was sold immediately following the demonetization plan. It makes it very attractive for Indians, but it also makes gold a target for the Indian government. We're going to talk about what the Indian government's been doing and threatening to do about gold. So, Indian gold imports are 86 tons, or about 3.03 million ounces in October, which is up about 104% from the 42 tons, or 1.4 million ounces in September, and up from about 45 tons, or approximately 1.6 million ounces in October 2015. So, month over month, gold imports were up a very robust 104%, and year over year, they were up 91% from October. So October 2015. So October 2016 was a very strong month, reflecting a lot of pent-up demand because not much gold has been imported into India in 2016. Gold imports are down more than 50% year over year in 2016. And with this solid October number, they're now down about 43%. And the reason for that is that the Indian government has been cracking down on gold. They have been doing a series of things, and if you go to the bottom of the blog post, we won't go through all of them, but they're on the blog post. You can read about them. The gold monetization program, where they're trying to get Indians to turn in gold. So they're doing two things. They're trying to reduce the amount of gold that comes into the country through tariffs, and then they're trying to reduce the amount of gold that's in the hands of Indian citizens by getting them to turn it in for these gold monetization bonds. But let's do let's look at the numbers of the gold imports in October and then year over year. Then we'll go back and we'll do the review of what's happened in the gold monetization, the cash demonetization scheme. So this year, you can see 419 tons have been imported so far into India. That's the lowest since about 2003. You see the number of years in the last 5 years, imports have been almost double that. Sometimes one year in 2011, they were over 1,000 tons. And then if you look month over month for the last couple of years, 86 tons in a month is pretty good. It's one of the better months. It's not spectacular for India, but it certainly beats the 23, 26 tons of gold, the 24, 25 tons of gold in some of the months in 2016. You can see this is a horrific stretch here where, partially because the price of gold was a lot higher this year than it was in prior years. Because remember, from January to June, July, we had a run in gold from under $1,100 up to about $1,400. So we did have price sensitive Indians not buying gold, and then curbing the imports. And then on top of that, you had the 10% import duty, and then there was a jewelry strike also during part of the year. So that's it for the gold imports. But let's go into more importantly what's happening thematically in India right now and how that's going to impact gold imports going forward and gold demand and what's going to happen with cash. So the first thing I want to report on is that the demonetization is not going as planned. If you recall, one of the reasons for this whole demonetization thing was to cut down on black money, and it was going to be a one-time swoop on people who had committed crimes, had not their tax cheats, had not declared their money, and it was a way of, if you went to turn in your notes and you couldn't prove that you had legally earned the money, you would confiscate the notes, or if you hadn't paid your tax, they'd basically charge you a surtax in addition to the tax that you didn't pay. So this was a way for the government supposedly to call out all these bad actors, flush them from the system, grab some tax revenue. But really what it came down to, and they've kind of almost admitted now, it's just a move in general, not a one-time move, but to go to a cashless society so they never have to do this again, so that they can track everything from the get-go and tax everything as they wish and know exactly what's going on in the economy. It's a central planner's dream. But the demonetization they expected would flush out a lot of these bad actors, and they wouldn't have the ability to come forward and turn in their money. Well, so far, I think the article says that they've already turned in 86% of these notes. So people found a way, legally or even criminals found a way to put those notes that were supposed to be demonetized, unless you can turn them in for new ones or unless you can deposit them into accounts. Well, they're pretty much almost done doing that. And the government had expected there to be twice as many notes not so redeemed or deposited that have already been put in. So basically, it hasn't been a success from that standpoint. But from the other standpoint, from the point of view is they knew they were going to have disruption, but they thought they were going to get all this bad money out. Well, they didn't, and the disruption has been horrific. There was a story about there's been long lines reported throughout India and tempers have been flaring, but there was one Bloomberg report that talked about mobs locking up bankers on cashless payday in India. So things are not going well in India. They didn't get the benefit from the anti-corruption move they thought that they were going to get, and they've disrupted the everyday lives of Indians. Indians have killed themselves because they haven't had access to their cash. That people have had hardship. People have died in lines. It has not been a pleasant situation. The commerce has come to a standstill in many cases because they don't have cash from which to conduct it. So it's not like just overnight they can say, let's just use our credit card, let's just use our debit cards, let's use alternative means of payment. They don't have any. As we mentioned last time, more than half the country doesn't have bank accounts. So it's not like, oh, okay, I'll just use my bank account, I'll debit card, I'll pay by electronic check. They don't have all those things in place. It was very foolish for the Indian government. Even this guy Rogoff, who is a big proponent of the cashless society, he even said this should happen over years, not overnight. The way I have no idea why the Indian government did it this way. I guess they figured they would never get it done unless they just did it in the shock and awe way in which they did it. Well, now gold sales. Everyone knows that gold sales would have soared. Would have expected that to happen. They did. We reported last time 23-time increase in gold sales from the night before when Modi made his announcement to the next day. Of course, gold sales skyrocketed. The Economic Times of India reported that in the 2 days following his announcement, 15 tons of gold were sold. Of course, massive amounts. But in the last month, gold sales have fallen off nearly 90%. Why? Indians, as we mentioned, don't have the cash to buy the gold with. And Indian gold imports are projected to rise in November because they were already on the increase in September and October, but then they're going to be cut in half because, again, the ability to buy the gold and also the the gold giving season is over. So November is normally the last big month of that season. So December, they don't expect there to be much. Now, going forward, we don't know how this is all going to play out, but it does seem that the government wasn't just looking to do a one-time crackdown on corruption, but really to move to a cashless society and really to push Indians off gold once and for all. There were rumors that they were going to ban gold imports. There were even rumors that they were going to ban gold ownership. They denied the latter report. They did not deny the former. So there could still be a ban, or at least a temporary ban, on gold imports. And again, they say the reason they're against gold is because they don't have any domestic mining production. So they have to import the gold. And when they import the gold, they have a trade imbalance. And a good portion of that imbalance is because they have to import a lot of gold. So what they want to do is stop the gold imports, but they also want to get the gold out of the Indians' hands. And they have their media, just like the United States has, working for them. Get this from the Economic Times of India, talking about the gold monetization scheme. It offers good interest and also a waiver of capital gains on appreciation in the value of gold deposited. So it makes sense to convert one gold hoard to these gold deposits, especially if it's held in bullion form. So basically, the government wants you to turn your gold bullion in, and they'll give you a note for it. And this way they can, quote, monetize that gold, which means they can throw it in their coffers, and then they can lend, hypothecate, and do all the wonderful banker schemes that they do in the West. But right now, there's about 18 to 20,000 tons of gold supposedly in the hands of Indians, all scattered across the country in small amounts, and they don't have it. And every year, as we see, 700, 800, 900 tons keeps coming in, and goes throughout the country again, and the government really has got nothing to do with it. They can't track it. So one of the other things the government is doing is they're encouraging you to declare your gold holdings. Now, why would you do that? Well, they say that you'll know how much gold is in the country, but also it's a defensive mechanism for Indians, because if they can declare the amount of gold that they have on their income tax, not that they necessarily have to pay tax on it, but at least they can show that the gold, they're able to buy it with declared income, that if there ever is a raid or a confiscation on dark money or hidden laundered gold, that they can show very easily that they had purchased it legitimately. So the government also, when they were talking about saying there's no limitations on holding gold, they did make the clarification that, of course, you can't hold gold if you're buying it with illegal funds, because that would just defeat the purpose. You can't just all of a sudden now you have gold, and now you're the fruit of your criminal activity is now legal. So basically what they're saying is, we want you to declare your gold holdings, and this way you have your your proof ticket, your get out of jail free card, that shows that you have this gold and you hold it legally. They also mentioned that if you had ancestral jewelry, which most Indians do have, because a lot of the gold wealth in India wasn't bought last week or last year. It's been passed down through generations. And they did clear that up and say there's no tax on that. Or, of course, if you buy gold from disclosed income, legal income, that's fine. But they still want you, even if you have ancestral jewelry, and even if you have purchased your gold from declared legal income, they still want you to turn it in under the gold monetization scheme. So basically, they know not to push it too far. They know not to say you're not allowed to own gold. It's okay to say you're not allowed to own gold if you're using stolen money, but they're still trying to get it out of their hands, and they're still trying to discourage people from buying more of it and letting more of it into the country. Now, some have suggested or suspected, and you would expect silver bugs to think this way, why not, that all the woes that are happening to gold will turn into silver's gain. I think there was an article here in NASDAQ.com, someone saying that. Now, sure, why not? I mean, silver has always been the poor man's gold in any society you go to, no different in India. Although Indians revere gold and they don't dislike silver, but it doesn't have the same allure. But of course, if you're looking to kind of get around the issue of fiat currency, and or also even if the criminals who want to avoid the issue and they can't use gold to launder their money, of course they're going to move to silver. But the problem I have with that theory is the Indian government isn't stupid. It's not like they're going to move from gold to silver and the government's going to say, okay, well, we cleared up the gold problem only to see the silver problem prop up. So if a government is capable of overnight declaring their 86% of their cash no longer valid, if they see any issue or any significant movement of monies from gold to silver, I think overnight you'll see the same type of move, basically making silver just like gold. And in fact, they'll probably even throw in palladium and any other precious metal you can. So I wouldn't get too excited that somehow silver imports are going to rise now because gold hasn't. Now, last year, both gold and silver imports were very high into India. This year, and we'll see this tomorrow, I'll get out the October silver import numbers. They rose too. But again, if they were to start to rise disproportionately because Indians caught on to the fact that they're not chasing me down for my silver yet, they're only chasing me down for gold, the Indian government will quickly put a kibosh on that too. So I wouldn't expect there to be any sustained additional silver imports. Although right now there is no duty on silver the way there is on gold, but that's also probably because there hasn't been the massive rush to it in 2016. There was last year. It was a record year. They imported about a third of global silver mining production, about over 300 million ounces. But this year, as we'll see tomorrow, that number is much lower. That should do it for today. Remember, you can donate to Smaulgld to help us fund these types of reports. Also, if you're interested in buying gold or silver, please do so through the Smaulgld site or through the links below on this YouTube video, because Smaulgld gets a small commission, and these are good dealers, and you pay no more no less than if you visited them directly on your own. So if you visit them through the Smaulgld links, Smaulgld makes a small commission. Thanks for listening.